Over time, I've covered the company. I have seen an evolution, said Ben Callow, analyst with Baird & Company. It started out as a dream. Now the mentality I see in the company is they believe they're close enough to change the whole industry in the next 10 years to the point where electric cars are the preferred mode of transportation. I rest my case, guys. You know, wherever they put the plan up, that's where you want to move. I don't care what you do. I don't care if you make sandwiches for a living. I don't care if you clean carpets. I don't care if you put blinds. I don't care what you do. There's going to be a bunch of work out there. And I tell you, getting behind Elon Musk is not hard to do. You know, he's changed my life. And I tell you, Solar City also, they are kicking butt. I mean, just go take a look at the stocks. And if I could print them, I'd show them here. But I don't want to get into that tonight. All right, so anyway, we're going to start with the first part of the show with Stuart Varney. And guys, this is so important because this is the way you want to address a climate denier, and this is exactly how you want to handle it. And you don't want to give him any room. You don't want to give him any leeway. You want to nail him, and you want to keep him nailed. Don't give him any breathing room. And watch how Ed Begley does it, and watch how he doesn't give up, and watch how the bada bings just keep happening. So, John, let's have the first clip.
I think the science is very clear in global warming. What these statements are, we'll go down the path and see what happens in peer-reviewed studies. Those are the key words here, Stuart. Peer-reviewed studies. If these scientists have done something wrong, it will be found out and their peers will determine it. I don't think geologists should write papers about being an actor or a newscaster, nor should, don't get your information from me, folks, or any newscaster. Get it from people with PhD after the name. Peer-reviewed studies are the keywords. And if it comes out in peer-reviewed studies that there are some cooking the books, that will come out.
Well, you know, Senator Inhofe has a list of 700 climate scientists who say this global warming, they've got problems with the whole theory of global warming. I put it to you.
There's not 700 climate scientists. There's weathermen and other people in there. There are some climate scientists.
The science is not in.
It is in.
No.
Stuart, quit saying that.
No, the debate is not over, sir.
Peer-reviewed studies. Go to Science Magazine, folks, Nature Magazine. Go to somebody you trust, National Geographic. Don't get it from you or me. Don't get it from Rush Limbaugh or Glenn Beck. Scientists, people with PhD. Weathermen, not weathermen.
Listen
science, climate.
Listen to this. I had a Princeton professor on my program.
What does he have his degree in?
Look, he's a physicist.
Okay, a physicist?
He's a Princeton professor.
I want people who are PhDs in climate science.
Who's questioned
a climate scientist isn't going to tell you the difference between a quark and a boson. He's not going to tell you
so
that.
There's no question whatsoever. Absolutely, no question in your mind.
You can be skeptical.
Right. The debate is
skeptical,
over.
but not denial. You guys
are over. The debate is over.
On global warming, the debate is very clear. It's out there in the scientific community. Read peer-reviewed studies. Peer-reviewed. That's all you need to do. Don't get it from you or me.
Guys, that's the way you do it. You want to take the information from published reports, from peer-reviewed published reports, you know, and this way, you know, people say, well, you know, the peer review process is flawed and blah, blah. No, it's not. It's a self-correcting mechanism. And, you know, like I've said often on this show, if there's one thing a scientist would want to do, if he can't be successful, if he can't get his name in the science books because he came up with something, the other way he can do it is by dissing somebody. So if you can prove somebody wrong, that's how you become noted as a scientist. And that's why you want to have published studies. Put it in black and white. Let me see what you have to say. And then this way, we can have a debate. But Joey, remember facts and figures. You put down facts and figures, and later we're going to show you Marsha Blackburn. She can't understand facts and figures. But this is what we're dealing with, guys. And why? Because if they started to deal with facts and figures, they wouldn't be conservatives anymore. It's that simple. I mean, that's why I call them simple folk, because they simply haven't taken the time to find out what's going on. All right, now the next clip is going to be Van Jones, and he's going to give the business to Newt Gingrich, but actually, he's going to let Newt Gingrich give the business to himself, because it's all in Newt Gingrich's own words. So, John, hit it.
Today, a traditional Secretary of State might have called a news conference to address at length the near civil war in Ukraine, or the challenges we face in Syria and Iraq, or Iran's nuclear program, even the problems in Venezuela. A real Secretary of State would focus on the real world. Instead, we have a Secretary of State who says the biggest threat we face is global warming. I want you to hear it again.
In a sense, climate change can now be considered another weapon of mass destruction, perhaps even the world's most fearsome mass destruction.
That statement is delusional. It's perfectly fine if you're in the U.S. Senate, which has 100 members, and any one can be randomly weird. But delusional thinking is totally inexcusable for any Secretary of State.
Well, we're going to fight today, because I think it's wrong to jump on him about this. First of all, I've worked on this issue, as you know, for 10 years of my life. Climate change is a super serious issue. The Pentagon says it's super serious. The CIA says it's super serious. And I'm surprised that you, in particular, you are one of the most pro-science people in public life. Here you got somebody trying to elevate science to the global discourse. He's right to raise this stuff. And I think you're wrong to jump on him.
Look, if you read the actual speech,
which I had done.
We're not talking about his sentiments, we're talking about the speech. Okay, in a world where you have potential civil war in Ukraine, several thousand nuclear weapons in Russia, several hundred nuclear weapons in China, over 100 nuclear weapons in Pakistan, a North Korean and Iranian effort to get nuclear weapons, to suggest that global climate change is anything comparable to the threat of nuclear weapons?
Well, first of all,
I think I use the word delusional deliberately. I think it's really, literally out of touch with the real world.
Well, the Pentagon disagrees with you, and I'll tell you somebody else who disagrees with you. There's a guy named Newt Gingrich who disagrees with you. I want you to hear yourself talking about this very issue just a few years ago.
What would you say to Senator Inhofe and to others in the Senate who are resisting even the science? What's your message to them here today?
My message, I think, is that the evidence is sufficient that we should move towards the most effective possible steps to reduce carbon loading of the atmosphere.
And do it urgently, now.
And do it urgently, yeah.
Now, I love this Newt Gingrich guy. He's great. Now, I would hate, now he was talking to somebody who used to be called a flip-flopper. I would hate to think that Newt Gingrich is now competing with John Kerry for the title of flip-flopper-in-chief.
No, not at all. The difference between a conversation, a debate that was in a Senate hearing room, talking about taking, I used the word effective steps.
Sure.
And suddenly elevating this, I'm happy to say this is a serious topic we ought to debate seriously and look at things. To then elevate that to more important, remember the phrase he uses is very clear. That's why the speech matters. It's not a press release. He says this could be the biggest mass threat to the planet.
Perhaps, he says.
Look, it's just not true.
We're going to be fighting tonight, but we got some people here to help us get through this. In the
Guys, doesn't that call for the old backhand, double reverse, bada bing, B-slap, huh? I mean, when you get a guy using his own words against him, you know, you'd think he'd shut up after a while, but they don't care. These guys don't care. And, you know, you could see he's a flip-flopper. And I thought the only flip-flopper was Mitt Romney when he did his flip-flopney routine during the election, you know. But hey, wait a minute. We're going to have more fun now, because now we're going to show you Marsha Blackburn. And you talk about a confused little girl. She doesn't have a clue. So let's have some fun and let's make some fun of her. Hey, I don't mean to be condescending and I don't mean to be mean. But when you deserve it, you deserve it. So, John, Hit us with the next clip.
Now I want to turn to the politics of weather. What a big story this week. And this morning in Jakarta, Indonesia, Secretary of State John Kerry gave the first in a series of speeches on climate change, saying it is threatening the world's way of life. I'm going to discuss the debate over climate change policies in just a moment with science educator Bill Nye and the science guy and a Republican Congresswoman from Tennessee, Marsha Blackburn. But first, is the growing cost of our recent weather disasters creating a new focus on the need for action on climate change? This week's storm left 500,000 Georgians without power at its peak, buried cities in snow and ice, stranded flyers, and practically shuttered the nation's capital. Extreme cold has frozen Lake Superior to levels not seen in decades and led to a boom in tourism and ice caves off the water. And in California, prolonged drought gripping 90% of the state has parched crops and dried up food supplies for livestock.
Is it a natural cycle? Is it due to human interference or human conditions that we have created? That remains open to debate. But there is no doubt the climate is changing.
President Obama toured a Fresno farm Friday to tout federal support to address California's water crisis. In his State of the Union speech, he was adamant.
The debate is settled. Climate change is a fact.
The extreme weather is not limited to the United States. Massive flooding has left large parts of England underwater over the past 2 months. The chief scientist of UK's National Weather Service said all the evidence suggests climate change is to blame. Skeptics say the forecasts of doom and gloom are overblown.
After you adjust for the fact that there's so many more people living in so many more places, there's no change in weather-related damages.
Bill Nye and Marsha Blackburn, welcome both of you to Meet the Press.
Good to be with you. Thanks, David.
Thank you. So here was the Guardian newspaper after all of the flooding in the UK, and here's the headline: climate change is here now. It could lead to global conflict, yet the politicians squabble. In the scientific community, this is not really a debate about whether climate change is real. The consensus is that it is. The majority of those who believe, in fact, that it is caused by humans. There are certainly some in the scientific community who don't believe that's the case, and who are skeptical about some of those conclusions. But nevertheless, there is still this level of consensus. My question to begin with both of you is, in this moment of this kind of extreme weather moment, is it creating new urgency to act? Bill Nye, I'll start with you.
Well, I would say yeah, and what I've always said, we need to do everything all at once, and this is an opportunity for the United States to innovate, to be the world leader in new technologies. That if you could invent a better battery, a better way to store electricity, you would change the world. And if you were to do that in a way that you could manufacture and export it, you would also do very well financially.
Congresswoman, is there new urgency to act? You've heard the president in drought-stricken California saying that these weather emergencies, in effect, are creating the conditions that government has to act.
David, I think that what it brings to mind is how we utilize the information that we have. And we all know, and I think that Bill would probably agree with this, neither he nor I are a climate scientist. He is an engineer and actor. I am a member of Congress. And what we have to do is look at the information that we get from climate scientists. As you said, there is not agreement around the fact of exactly what is causing this. Even the president's own Science and Technology Office head, Mr. Holdren, says no one single weather event is due specifically to climate change. So it drives the policy to look at cost-benefit analysis, what we do about it, and the impact that U.S. policy would have in a global environment.
Well, and that's another question that I want to get to. But there is consensus, as you say, Congresswoman. There is some skepticism about the degree to which humans may cause climate change, or can you specifically say an emergency, rather a weather event, can be blamed on climate change? Some disagreement about that within the UK. Nevertheless, within the scientific community, there is consensus, Bill Nye, and among the scientists themselves on both of those questions.